Well, hi everyone, and welcome to this edition of ExecuNet Masterclass. I'm your host, Tony Vlahos, and my guest this hour is Dave Putt of MBO Partners. Many of us dream of self-employment, but don't know how to put ourselves on the path to a successful work-for-yourself career. Today, Dave is going to share his insight on how to plan for and make that leap, along with tips and strategies for remaining in the ranks of the self-employed. Pretty important stuff, and part of our commitment here at ExecuNet to connect you with higher value thinking for a better career and
is finding both a mentor and networking with people. You know, Gary has 1,400 on LinkedIn, probably people beyond that are his clients and his cohorts from long ago. And also, but mentorship's an important piece. If you know somebody who's been through the ropes in terms of being an independent consultant, or folks that have really deep connections that can offer you counsel on how you're both marketing yourself and the type of engagements and your pricing, it's just good to have another person to bounce those off of.
You've got to jump into the what I call the karma cycle, folks. You have to find people that are willing to mentor you and pass things on down. But then you have to be willing to contribute to that cycle. I try to spend, and some months are easier than others depending on how busy I am, but I try to spend 5, 7, 8% of my time just doing pure engagement with other people, an activity like today, mentoring others, whether they're becoming an independent or they're just entering the workforce out of the university and just trying to find their way. If you get sort of into that benevolent cycle, I have found it pays dividends in spades. Because if you do it for the right reasons, you're there to help each other. You'll find that independents actually really try to help each other because we all know that we're on the sharp edge of the tack. But you have to be able to sort of give into the system, not because you're expecting an immediate return tomorrow. It's like, okay, Dave, I'm not going to talk to you unless you give me a job tomorrow. That's exactly the wrong way to do this. You build those relationships, you mentor each other, you gain from those that came before you, you pass on to those that are sort of following in your footsteps. And I have found if you do that with honesty and integrity and the right frame of mind, that's where you build the relationships because they're value-based relationships. You know, they're truly from the heart rather than just sort of I want something from you. And you just have to make yourself do that. You know, I know it's hard sometimes because you're worried about the bottom line or making money that month or whatever, but I guarantee you it pays off in the long run.
And you will likely, when your engagements run into other people that are like you. So there's two benefits.
Yes.
One is you get to know them personally, but also you get to know their work and they get to know your work.
Yes.
So when they vouch for you at some other client downstream, they've seen you do
Yes.
what you do and can say, this is where Gary was.
And it's a truism that even if something doesn't come out of it business-wise, every conversation I have, I take something from it. You know, you test an idea or you hear about a little bit different, something that you've never heard of before. There is value in that regardless of whether there's immediate business
Sure.
or not.
And speaking of things you don't know about, the one trend that we want to talk about, I'm going to touch this briefly and get off it, but in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see online marketplaces. It's really the Uberization of the world as we, seen multiple articles about and hear about every day. Well, this is happening in consulting too. There's literally 300 or more online marketplaces for talent. So not for drivers, not for other, Airbnb, but for people to do work. Everything from the, bottom of the end, TaskRabbit and things like that, clear up through things like Work Market. These will become prevalent in the next 5 to 10 years, we believe, and will be a main engagement method for people who are independent or freelance. So Gary, so we can wrap up and get on to questions. How have you found your engagements? How have you typically got through them?
All of the above, everybody, but I would start with relationships. It really is, consulting is a relationship business. Some come directly from LinkedIn, some come from these platforms, some come from, any of a number of different relationships, but it's about the network. And what's funny, out of those 1,500 links I have on LinkedIn, it's not often that you find business from, and I don't think of people in this way, but for this purpose, I think you'll understand what I'm saying. They don't necessarily come from your inner circle of 20 people. They come from like about the 5th or 6th or 7th circle. But the thing is, you're not going to get to that 5th or 6th or 7th circle unless you build out from your core and build those relationships. I get leads on jobs from, and again, I'm smiling at myself because I don't count people this way, but I get leads from the 937th person on my link, right? You know, they don't come from number 15 or number 20, but you have to build out from the core to get to that person, because Mr. or Madam 937 has a strategic planning need that they need somebody that's been around the block a few times to come do next week. That's how you get to those people.
Well, and I think, too, you'll find that people come to you when they say, hey, it looks on your LinkedIn profile that you know somebody, you know, so can you connect me? So that karma thing you talked about earlier, I think, comes into play when you have a robust network like that where you can actually help other people.